Good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're here for the final episode of ranking the albums. Yeah, this is episode number 8. It's not actually the final episode because we will do the 2 semifinals and the finals. So this is the final episode of new stuff set up to go. So for those of you new to the channel, please hit the like and subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss anything that's coming up. And also for those of you who are new to this particular series, so we've got this ranking the albums, and this is a series in which a subscriber of mine, friend Ben, he picks 4 albums from his vast collection of CDs, and I'm assuming he has some vinyls as well. And he gives me 4 albums from that, and I listen to the 4 albums, and then I talk about them and I rank them. Usually what I've been doing this particular series is talking about them while I introduce them and then ranking them at the end. So we're going to stick with that formula. Seems to be okay with me. So first of all, the 4 albums that are in question for this episode are Pete Bardens, formerly of Camel, but at this time I think this is pre-Camel, I think. So Pete Bardens, The Answer is the name of the album. The next album is The Sweet and Sweet Fanny Adams. Manfred Man's Earth Band, Nightingales and Bombers is the album. And last but certainly not least, Robert Plant's Principle of Moments. So this album actually came out in '83. I believe I owned this one and Pictures at 11 in vinyl. Those 2 I owned in vinyl. So I've got some experience with this album. I must have liked them at the time because my friend and me, my best friend John, we went to see Robert Plant at the Mistake by the Lake, or otherwise known as the Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. It was a nice August afternoon. At least I think it was an August afternoon. It might have been July. I can't remember. It was summer anyways. We were outside, enjoying the music amongst other things. And I did like this music, these albums, quite a bit in that time period. But anyways, I'm going to talk a little bit about the 4 albums in the sequence I gave them to you, and then I'll give you the rankings at the end. So the first one, Pete Bardens, The Answer. I'd not heard this before. This was new to me, although I know who Pete Bardens is because I do have quite a few Camel albums. Lots of heavy keyboards on this album, of course. It's to be expected, right? The vocals are kind of indiscriminate, I would say. Not really memorable, but not terrible. Like good vocals, but nothing stands out as being abnormal, or there's no weird sound to his voice. It's not really high pitched. It's not really low. It's just kind of right down the middle. But it's not bad. Not a bad vocals. I actually think it kind of suited the album. It does have some very heavy and dominating guitar solos throughout the album. There's at least 2 or 3 that I thought were just pretty outstanding. I'm not sure who he had as a guitar player. I did with the albums, when I do the rankings of the albums, I pretty much never go back and look at the album. I'm just listening to see if I like them. I don't know anything about him. I do know who Pete Bardens is because it's his album, so I am aware of him. It's got a little bit of a psychedelic touch to the album. I wouldn't say it's overly psychedelic, but there is a flavor of psychedelia here. It's got some really kind of heavy moments on this album too. So it's a little. I would say it's almost a hard rock album at times. Pretty strong. And overall, I think it's a pretty strong kind of hard rock, psychedelic, a little bit of blues in there, some quirky stuff as well. But overall, not a bad album at all. I don't know if I would necessarily buy it for a substantial price, but if I saw it in the $5 or $6 bin, I might pick it up. So that's the first album in the 4. So the second one is the Sweet. This is a band that I quite love, actually. The album Sweet Fanny Adams. A lot of the tracks on Sweet Fanny Adams are also on the album that I own, which is Christ, I can't think of it. Desolation Boulevard. Yep, sorry. So, yeah, very heavy album. Lots of hard rockin' stuff going on here. Some real good, catchy riffs. That's normal for these guys. They're masters at creating those catchy riffs and hooks. I would say this is quite rocking overall. Guitar is really good. The solos are excellent. I think the vocal harmonies on this album are good as well. It's pretty strong, actually. It does have a kind of rocking sound to it. There's not much pop on this album, which is kind of strange because most people know the Sweet. They know of the Sweet as being that really poppy band that they hear on with songs like Fox on the Run and Ballroom Blitz and Wee Willie and those kind of songs, but there's not much of that on this album. This is just a pretty heavy rock and hard rock album, I think. Pretty strong too. So the next album up was Manfred Man's Earth Band, Nightingales and Bombers. So I know who Manfred Man is. I've been listening to them. I hear their stuff on the radio all the time, or I used to when I listen to the radio. Don't listen to it as much, although this last week or so I've been bored out of my mind when I've been driving, so I decided to listen to stuff on the radio and heard a few things I hadn't heard for a while, so it was kind of fun. This is a pretty... I would say this is a bit of a psychedelic album. It does have its psychedelic moments. A little bit of prog here, which kind of surprised me as well. Not a ton, but some of the longer songs had a bit of a prog element to them. Of course, it's very bluesy and has a really kind of jazzy sound at times as well. And of course, there's a little bit of that psychedelic feeling, especially on the couple of longer tracks on the album. Still pretty strong. I think Manfred Man, they have a decent, good vocalist. Not terribly memorable, but definitely when you're listening to, you hear something come on by them, usually they're one of the bands. If I hear something like this, I think, that could be Manfred Man. It comes to mind, And the last album of the four, Robert Plant's The Principle of Moments. I think this was one of two albums I did own from him. This, of course, has that I'm in the Mood for a Melody. That was probably the hit on the album. Lots of good, solid Robert Plant vocals here. His voice is very smooth, as always. Catchy riffs, especially on that melody song. It's got a bit of a poppy sound to it overall, though, I think. And some decent, good promotion of the keyboards and synthesizers. Sorry. On some of these tracks. Overall, it's not bad. It's not as good as I remember it, though. I used to think it was a much better album than I'm listening to it. And the other one, I thought he was even better. But maybe it's just my change of music has changed so much that I don't find it as great as I once thought it was. So anyways, I'm going to give you my rankings for these albums now. So coming in at number 4, and I want to say that there's not much separating. The lowest album's a little bit lower than the rest, but the other three are right on top of each other. So the fourth place one, I'm going to go with Pete Bardens, The Answer. I think that it was a little bit too quirky for me, and I wasn't expecting it to sound like this, so maybe I got a little bit of a biased negative feedback from it. But at any rate, I didn't think as much of the album as I originally thought I was going to. I actually thought this would be one of the albums that would surprise me in the other direction. The number 3 album, I went with Manfred Man's Earth Band. Thought this was also better than I had. This one was actually better than I thought, so it was a little bit different. I never really cared much for this particular band, and so I had low expectations of it. And of course, when you have low expectations, sometimes it exceeds it. I think it did succeed it. I found a couple things about it that were surprised me. First, how good the musicianship was, and how much psychedelia was here. I think the only negative with the album is there was a little bit too much of that jazzy sound, and it just doesn't come across right for me with these guys. So that's my number 3 album. My number 2 album, I'm going to go with Robert Plant here, The Principles of Moments. I thought this album might be the top album, just because of that one song, I'm in the Mood for a Melody, but just the rest of the album isn't as good as I remember it being. And I just think overall, it was even though it had that one song, which may be one of the best songs on any of the 4 albums, I just don't think it held up. It hasn't held up as well as I once thought it did. Or maybe I've heard it. I'm hearing it differently than I did then. I'm not really sure. But that's going to be my number 2. Losing Out to the Sweet by a hair. Well, a little bit more than a hair. It was a little stronger. Manfred Mann and Robert Plant were probably about a hair apart, and then it was a little bit of a jump up. I would think about the same jump up as the Pete Bardens was a jump down. So number 1, The Sweet Fanny Adams. It's a great album. I think it's typical of the Sweet. Very heavy, lots of really good, solid harmony and lead vocals. And the guitar was always kind of dominating, which I liked quite a bit. And then, of course, you've got Mick Jones is great. Is it Mick Jones? I think it's Mick Jones. Yeah, Mick Jones is great. Mick Jones. Who am I talking about? Mick Jones never played in this band. He was a Foreigner member. Sorry, we're talking about Mick Tucker here. Sorry, I got my mix mixed up. No, forget it. Let's just go on with it. Anyways, I think this is a pretty good, solid album. I think it wins this a little bit more than a hair. I think it was stronger than the others. I think there was a couple songs on some of the other albums I liked quite a bit that was in here, but this album overall was just stronger across the board, and that's pretty much why I decided to go with it. So there you have it. Those are the rankings for this week. I'll give you them from top to bottom again. So the Sweet Fanny Adams will come in at number 1. Robert Plant's The Principle of Moments will come in at number 2. Nudging out Manfred Mann's Earth Band's Nightingales and Bombers by a Hair coming in at number 3. And then last, and definitely least in this category, Pete Bardens and The Answer. Although I think all 4 of these albums have potential to get a little bit better. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of ranking the albums. So the next stage will be the semifinals. So we'll do the first semifinals next Friday, and the following semifinals the following Friday. With the 2 winners, will go head to head with each other for the finals again. So I hope to see you all then. Don't forget to like and subscribe and the notification bell. And any comments that you want to leave, you can leave them in the comment section below. And I will see you then. So take care and have yourself a good evening.